Welcome to Voices of Supported Employment, the podcast by Durham Enable. Each episode highlights the stories of individuals with disabilities, job coaches, and employers all working together to build a more inclusive workforce. We explore the impact of supported employment, showcasing how job coaches empower individuals and how employers can create disability-confident organisations. Join us as we break down barriers, inspire change, and work towards a future where everyone can thrive in the world of work. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. This week we're bringing you the first of a two-part conversation in which our service manager Ramsay Taylor and team leader Mel Kearney join me in a discussion about the 5-stage model of supported employment. We're talking about what is involved in each of the stages and how each of the stages work together to help us provide a high level of service and ultimately the best and most positive outcomes for our job seekers and employers. Ramsay, Mel, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Very good.
Good, thanks.
Good. It's nice to see you. So before we get started today, can you just introduce yourselves and tell us what you do in the team? Ramsay, can I go first?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my name is Ramsay Taylor. I am the Supported Employment Service Manager for Durham County Council, which is otherwise known as Durham Enable, which people will recognise the branding for, I imagine. I've worked in supported employment for coming up to 15 years. Started as a job coach many years ago, working within the charity sector, and joined Durham County Council and their support employment service back in November 2021. So it's been a few years now.
It's been about 4 years now.
Yeah.
Awesome. Mel?
Hi everyone, my name's Mel Kearney. I'm one of the team leaders here at Durham Enable. I've worked for Durham Enable for 4 years as well, following it pretty much from its beginning stages. So I've been a job coach, I've been an in-work support and training officer, I've worked on various programmes, and now I'm the team leader.
Yeah, and I'm the other team leader, aren't I?
You
are. You're the Batman to your Robin or something like that. We work it out, don't we? I haven't been here that long, so I'm learning lots from both of you. So today we're going to be talking about the 5-stage model of supported employment. We know that there are 5 stages, 12 core values, all these numbers floating around, but actually the stages and the values are things that that underpin all of our work and what we do. And I thought it would be good because as this podcast is new and there'll be people who are listening who maybe don't have an idea of what supported employment is, I thought it would be good for the three of us to kind of have a conversation around those 5 stages, what they are, what it means, and how, we can give examples about how it plays out in practice across the team and across supported employment as a whole. So is that all right? Should we do that?
Let's do it.
Let's start with stage number 1, which is engaging the job seeker. So Ramsay, can you just talk to us about that stage and how that works?
Yeah, they're all really important stages, obviously, because they wouldn't exist otherwise. But this is the very much the foundation, I suppose, of the entire service. Because if you're not getting it right with your job seekers and the organisations that you then work alongside within your local communities, then the rest of the stages that you'll then begin to work through are just incredibly difficult to work through, really. So the whole idea really of engaging job seekers is around actually looking at the service and looking at how do we make this service as accessible to people as possible. And we talk a lot about accessibility throughout the service and throughout the model. And accessibility really within this stage goes beyond just, your marketing, having a good presence online, having a good website, having all of the sort of infrastructure in place where people then know how to then contact the service to gain that information, advice and guidance on supported employment, or beginning to think about employment as a possible next step for themselves or their child or somebody that they support within their service. this is very much about actually how do we embed ourselves within our local communities. One of the challenges I think that we've got, especially within a county the size of Durham, is just the sheer vastness of it, really. And there are so many different geographical challenges that people face depending on their postcode, essentially. And it's down to us really to ensure that our service is as accessible as possible. So, we make sure that our job coaches are very much embedded within their local communities. We talk a lot about the power of being local, and we'll probably come on to a bit of that when we talk about employer engagement as well. Traditionally, supported employment is sat sort of alongside adult social care. So one of the, it's really important that we have our job coaches sat alongside and very much embedded within social care and have some very clear connections with social workers and the various teams that sit within that service area of the local authority. So then they're able to then make those referrals directly into us, or gain a little bit of advice on, we've got this particular person, this is the current situation that we're dealing with. How about you come along and talk a little bit about Durham Enable and the support that you can offer to them and their family?
I think that's something that we do really well as a service, is that engaging with the partners across the county. So having our team embedded within those social care teams or those community settings, the various different referral partners, being known, having a name, having a face, somebody that you can really contact and connect with, so that it's not just a leaflet, it's actual real people talking about real life case stories that people can really engage with. So I think we do that really well as a service, and I think the referrals and the relationships that we've built kind of are a result of that. I think this speaks for itself. The referrals that we get through. I think the engaging job seeker stage for me is always known as like the front door. So like Ramsay said, it's really important that we get it right at that stage, because this is our service. We really want to showcase it to its best, and that initial stage is crucial for that, really, because a first impression really counts. So like have the job seekers, the job coaches and the job coach assistants being able to kind of talk really positively about success stories and being able to help the community to understand what Durham Enable's about.
We do a lot of work, don't we, with the team, with our respective teams, but the teams as a whole in the pre-engagement side as well. So we're, looking at workshops for college students that are leaving, at 18 and maybe looking for work. There's lots of, I think when you think about kind of referral, the immediate thought that comes to mind is you're filling out forms, but actually what we're doing is building those relationships even before those forms are filled in, so we're developing the workshops that will go into colleges, working with anyone who, could access the service at any point, and looking at how we can just develop the relationship before we get to kind of the official part of,
and being present at various events and like not just job fairs but like real community events that are happening in local community centres or libraries or job centres. Just having a face, somebody that you can actually talk to, it's far more personable than just filling out a form.
There's lots we could.
Yeah, I mean, we could probably talk about this for way longer than the time that we've got for this. But I think just it's really important to bring it back to some of the values that sit behind the service. One of the key values that we always need to consider at this point is that zero rejection philosophy, and really understanding what that actually means. We do get, we get a tremendous amount of referrals into the service. We're talking sort of on average around, 50, sometimes 60 referrals per month. That is huge numbers of people that have been referred into the service. But obviously not everyone is then supported by us. And that's not a case of, we don't believe in work readiness. Work readiness for us does not exist. You'll never hear any supported employment practitioner definitely not within Durham Enable, talking about whether somebody is work ready or job ready. That just does not exist for us. But this is about, actually, is this the right time for you to be engaging with a supported employment service? Is it the right time for us to be placing you into work as soon as possible? Because there are lots of other things that we need to consider that may be going on within that person's life. It might be that there's some big changes coming, like moving house, or maybe they're going into hospital for a period of time. It might not be the right time then for us to begin working with you and really sort of talking about and placing you into employment at that moment. So during this initial stage, we do a lot of navigation work or signposting to possibly other services that might be more appropriate for you at that moment in time. And it's never a no. It's just not the right time right now. But actually, let's talk about this in, say, 3 months' time. Let's have another phone call, or let me come out and see you and your family in, say, 6 months' time, once you've been through that particular event or circumstance, and pick up this conversation again. And I think that's, and that's where we're talking about the suitability for the service. Is it the right time for you to be placed into employment? And are you motivated? Do you want to work? That's also one of the key questions that we ask during that initial phase, and then we need to get down to get to the bottom of, really.
Yeah. There's a lot involved even in that first stage, isn't there? Let's move on to stage 2, shall we? Vocational profiling and action planning. Tell us about the whole process. We've done a lot of development work, haven't we, in the last few months with the team, especially around understanding this stage and really getting to grips with what this is. So let's talk about
vocational profiling. Really starts right at the very first meeting. So even in that engagement stage, really, because the conversations that you're having with your job seekers, with the individuals, all of the information that you're gathering is helping to build you that picture, that person-centered, personalised report, which essentially is what the vocational profile is. It's an all about me. What are my skills? What are my strengths? What areas might I need to develop? What kind of preferences do I have for work? What kind of areas do I want to work in? All of those kind of build a picture about the individual, about the job seeker. So it starts right in those beginning conversations, but it actually follows the job seeker throughout the whole of the 5 stages, right through into work and beyond. So it's a working document that we refer back to. It's the job seekers. It's their document. They have to be happy with what's written in there. But it's essentially a tool for us to really gather lots of information to enable us to get the job match right for that individual.
Yeah, it's probably everyone's favourite sort of stage, really, that works within supported employment, because this is the opportunity to really, like Mel says, build upon that first stage. It does start within that first stage, but this is really where it sort of comes into its own. And this is the point where you're building up that rapport and that trust with the person, but also with that person's support circles as well. So families, carers, other support networks that may exist, social workers. It's our job really to kind of facilitate some of that. It's also really key for us to understand, and I've got to get this in. I've got to talk about the donut of responsibility. But there is always a risk that we kind of we breach the walls of those lines, really, of responsibility, and we end up doing lots for the person and their support network. We're not an expert in every element of that person's life. Our focus is employment. A bit like what we said before with engaging job seekers, there are other things going on, within people's lives. We're not there to find solutions and support people with everything within that person's life. So actually, being a key person within that support network, sometimes it's our job to go, you know what, that's not my responsibility, but maybe your mum could be the one to give you that support for that, or maybe we need to have a conversation with your social worker on that. So let's pull some strings, let's bring those people a bit closer to you so we can have that conversation. And that essentially then empowers that person to, you know, to have those conversations, to you know, enable them to get the other elements of support that they may then need in order for us within supported employment to then move further forward. But it's always about respecting those lines of roles and responsibilities that we have as practitioners.
Is the donut copyrighted?
It should be.
It should be. Absolutely.
It should be, but it's not. So we could actually link it for everyone to see this donut.
Yeah.
And then they could have the donut.
Yeah.
I'm conscious that we're talking about this donut, but people might not understand what it is.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about the most delicious donut that
it's got pink icing on it. I've seen this donut. I'm not impressed.
It's very Homer Simpson type donut. But you know, chose a ring donut. You could choose a jam donut.
You could choose different,
jam being the core of your responsibility.
We will link to the donut and then let everybody decide kind of what their preference is.
I suppose the point with it is people will remember it.
They will remember.
You know, they always remember the donut responsibility, and they know where that, you know, when they're challenged with making certain decisions, where does this sit?
Yeah.
Whose responsibility is this?
Yeah. It's really key because lots of the people that we support have real complex needs. They have lots of services involved. So Ramsay's right in that we have to remember what our role is within this. We're supported employment services, so it's really key to understand where our roles and responsibilities lie as practitioners. So that's where the donut.
Yeah, it is. It is one thing that we say a lot to the team is that naturally, if you're in this profession, if you're in this role, you want to help people, you want to see things change, you want to see transformation, but then that can also lead to you thinking I've got to do everything, and actually that's not the case. So for job coaches and for job seekers to understand, for everybody on both sides to understand whose responsibility is what is really important. I, coming from an education background and a special education needs background, I saw the vocational profile was very similar to the education, health and care plan. Lots of our job seekers will have been through school with an education, health and care plan, and that's what, you know, parents, carers will know and understand. This is sort of like the next step, it looks like to me, in, you know, we're sitting down with a job seeker and looking at all of the things that they're really good at, their strengths, their skills, what is important to them. So I won't say it's a follow-on because the EHCP is a legal document, whereas the vocational profile isn't. But if just to kind of help people put some context around what that document might look like, you know, you can have your photo on it. We find out about your family, all of those sorts of things. So it is a really kind of it's something that people may be familiar with.
It's quite lengthy as well, but and I think it needs to be, because this is an opportunity for us to consider all elements of somebody's life. So it has to be fairly big, but it doesn't mean that we have to complete all the sections. It's just about actually what's relevant to you given your current circumstances and what we need to know. And I suppose another key difference between the EHCP and a vocational profile, and an EHCP is generally sort of reviewed every year.
Yeah.
A vocational profile is a working document, a working process that you're constantly, you know, adapting and amending and reviewing with the person. And it should never be seen as a sit-down exercise where we go, right, day one of supported employment, we're going to sit down together and we're going to complete this vocational profile together. Once we've been through this, then we can get onto the good stuff and start looking at employment. No, it just doesn't work like that. This is about actually, you know, if somebody's saying that they want to work in manufacturing or they want to work in retail, great, you've kind of recorded that initially on the vocational profile, but how do I actually know whether you've got the skills and the abilities, or are you able to make an informed decision on what you want to do? We need to get ourselves out there. We need to go into these types of workplaces, maybe do some work experience, do a tour of a workplace, go and speak to some employers, speak to people that work in that industry to learn more about it. Just by doing that, you're going to learn so much about the person, and you bring it back onto the vocational profile. And again, rather than bringing someone into an office environment, say our office that we're sat in right now, and working through this section by section. This is about, well, let's meet in your local community. Let's meet at home. Let's make this as accessible as possible for you, but also let's sort of mix things up a little bit, and let's meet maybe in different environments. There are lots of things that I could be learning about you by just, maybe going for a walk and talk session in your local area. Today we're in Seaham, and if I was working with somebody in Seaham, one of the sessions I'd be doing, weather dependent, obviously, is maybe going for a walk on the beach or a walk down the coast. But a walk and talk could be really powerful. I haven't got any documentation in front of you, but you're just using it as an opportunity to build up rapport, build up that trusting relationship, and just learn about the person from them, from the most important person that's part of this, this service, which is the job seeker, the person that we support.
Yeah, absolutely. And action planning kind of it goes hand in hand. It's in the same stage. They're two separate documents if you want to look at it on a really basic level. But actually, the vocational profiling and action planning goes hand in hand. So, can you kind of explain how you'd start with the vocational profile, find some things out, and then what that would look like if you start to do, put together an action plan for the job seeker, or with the job seeker, should I say? Because we're not doing, it's not something that is done to, it's done with.
Yeah. So obviously you're gathering lots of information throughout your vocational profile, and there might be an area that the individual wants to explore, like manufacturing. Let's use that example that Ramsay's just talked about. Let's create an action plan as to how we are going to help you explore the manufacturing industry. So the action plan might be that the goal is that we want to learn about, a factory or the setting of a manufacturer. I can't think of a name of one. Manufacturing.
Yes. Car manufacturer.
A car manufacturer. And within the next 3 weeks to understand, what the roles are within that factory. So the actions might be that you arrange a visit, do some research into which factories are in the local area. You could do that together with your job seeker. Then you might arrange a visit, a tour, talk to some people in that factory. These are all sort of actions that come to help you to reach that goal. So the job seeker is then in the environment, seeing the roles and responsibilities of the workplace, talking to other people in that area, and then you might be able to arrange some sort of work experience or a work trial or a working style interview so that the job seeker gets to really get a feel for the environment. Those actions will all kind of help build your vocational profile, helps that job seeker to get to where they want to be, essentially. So if manufacturing is the field that they choose and we think that actually it's a really good match based on their profile, then all of those actions will help them to achieve that goal.
The goal of what we do is to help people obtain paid employment.
Yeah.
So the action plan that you've just spoken about is around looking at the industry of manufacturing, car manufacturing, that kind of thing. What about the other actions that can arise from the profile that are not necessarily, I'm going to look at this industry and research this role? What could be the other actions that we could?
Travel training is a real key element of supported employment. So we would support job seekers to become independent, travelling to a place of work or a place of interest. Say they wanted to work in retail at Dalton Park. So we would support them to learn that route, to develop the skills to enable them to travel to Dalton Park independently. And that, again, is planned action on an action plan. So the goal is to be able to travel independently to Dalton Park by the 26th of March. And the actions are that actually we're going to plan the route together. We're going to do the route together. We're going to make sure that it's accessible. And then slowly we fade out that support so that the job seeker becomes more and more independent with that travel until eventually they can do it independently. And I mean, that could take a number of weeks, a number of sessions, and you can really break it down into the smaller steps if needed. But again, it's a real essential skill to support somebody to become independent at work.
Yeah, I mean, one of the questions or queries that I would get from staff at times is, there isn't a job right now. We haven't got it. There is no job offer. I'm not in that job matching phase, and we haven't secured employment yet. Why do travel training as part of this phase? And like Mel said there, you might have identified an area of interest somewhere that person likes to go to. So if it's a local shopping centre that they like to go to, but they're unable to travel and can only really go there when they've got a support worker with them or the mum or dad is available. Using that vocational profiling phase as an opportunity to, let's enhance some of your independence through travel training, because right now you don't believe, say, that you could use the bus and you don't believe that you could travel independently. Well, I want to tackle that barrier now and that challenge with you now before we get to this point where there's a job. And I'm placing you in a job. This is one less thing for us to overcome, is your confidence in order to use the bus. Yeah. If I can prove to you now that you're able to do it through travel training, which uses very similar techniques to what we would call systematic instruction, which lends itself perfectly for in-work support. Applying those types of techniques to travel training is going to help us in the long run. It's going to help us when we get to that point when there's a job offer on the table, and there may be some travel expectations of the job on getting to and from. We're not having that conversation on building your confidence and ability to do that.
You can end up with quite a few action plans, can't you? But I suppose the whole process supports the job seeker to reduce that overwhelm, because there are all of those things to think about when you're wanting to go into work. What is the industry? That's one. What type of role do you want to do? How am I going to get there? There's lots of things. How am I going to search for jobs online? All of those things are things that could prevent someone from even taking that first step to apply for a job, because it's just overwhelming when you think of all these things. But actually, the job coaches being able to set out different action plans for those different and compartmentalize in a way those different concerns that job seekers might have is a good way of showing that job seeker, look at what you've done, look at how far you've come in each of those areas. And then it all comes together, hopefully, in a lot of cases at the end to them being able to access work.
And there's very much a tipping point with this. When you're building up that momentum and that you're building up that sort of that confidence and being able to show people how far that they've come, you get to a point where you sort of see the momentum has sort of really swung towards that progression, and you'll see then actually the results and the fruits of your labour really start to come through, and you'll see that people start to enter employment a lot quicker, and that you see that across the service as a whole, really. When you're building up the confidence as well of the staff team and believing in the model and the approach that we take. Sometimes that takes years, I think, to get to that point. And we've definitely passed that that tipping point now, and we're seeing the fruits of our labour within the service. People that are coming into the service are gaining employment, and not just gaining employment, they're staying in employment as well, which is really, really important.
Thanks for tuning in to Voices of Supported Employment. We hope you found today's episode inspiring and insightful. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. And don't forget to download, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback helps us reach more people and spread the message of inclusion. Until next time, let's continue working together to create a workforce where everyone knows that they are safe, seen, and supported.